Ethan had always wanted a quiet life away from the chaos of the city. When he found a listing for a cheap farmhouse deep in the countryside, it felt like destiny. The house stood at the edge of Hollow Creek, a forgotten town surrounded by endless woods and silence that carried stories no one dared to tell. The owner, an old woman with pale eyes, barely spoke during the transaction. "All I ask," she whispered, "is that you never enter the basement after midnight." Ethan laughed it off as a superstition, but something in her voice sent a chill through him. When he arrived at the house, everything seemed normal, except for the strange marks carved into the wooden doorframe. He brushed them off as old scratches. That night, as the wind howled outside, Ethan unpacked his boxes. The power flickered for a moment, then steadied. He walked through the dimly lit hallway, noticing a faint smell of damp soil coming from beneath the floorboards. At around midnight, his phone began to buzz even though there was no signal in the area. The screen showed a notification. "Do not open the door." He froze. No one knew he was here. Then, a soft knock echoed from the basement door. He told himself it must be the wind. But when the knock came again, louder, more deliberate, he couldn't deny it anymore. Someone or something was down there. He grabbed a flashlight, his heart pounding. The handle was ice cold when he touched it. Slowly, he turned it, but before he could open the door, a whisper came from behind him. "You shouldn't be here, Ethan." He spun around, the light shaking in his hand, but there was no one in sight. Only the sound of breathing. Close. Too close. The next morning, Ethan tried to convince himself it was all a dream. Maybe the stress of moving had played tricks on his mind. But the muddy footprints near the basement door said otherwise. They weren't his, and they led upward toward his bedroom. The air inside the house felt heavy, thick with something unseen. Every sound, a creaking floorboard, a gust of wind, felt alive. Still, Ethan wasn't the type to believe in ghosts. "Maybe an animal got in," he muttered, forcing a nervous laugh. As night fell, the storm returned. Rain slammed against the windows. The lights flickered again, and that smell, damp, rotten earth, was stronger than ever. Ethan stood before the basement door. His flashlight trembled in his hand as he twisted the rusty lock. The door groaned open with a sound that cut straight through his spine. The staircase was swallowed in darkness. Each step creaked under his weight as he descended. The deeper he went, the colder it got. He could see his breath now, fogging in the beam of his flashlight. At the bottom, the concrete floor was wet, like something had recently been unearthed. He followed a narrow tunnel that led into a small chamber, where the walls were covered with those same strange markings he'd seen on the doorframe upstairs. In the middle of the room stood a wooden coffin, half buried in the mud. His flashlight flickered violently as he approached it. A voice whispered again, this time from inside the coffin. "Help me," Ethan froze. His instincts screamed to run, but curiosity chained him in place. He knelt down, wiped off the mud, and lifted the heavy lid. Inside lay the same old woman who had sold him the house, eyes open, mouth moving silently as black liquid dripped from her lips. Her pale hand shot out, grabbing his wrist with inhuman strength. "You opened the door," she hissed. "Now she's free." The coffin shook violently, the air filled with a piercing scream that didn't come from the woman. It came from behind Ethan. He turned around. In the corner of the basement stood a figure, tall and twisted, its face covered with a sack, its long fingers scratching the wall. The flashlight died. When Ethan woke up, he was lying on the floor of his living room. His clothes were soaked in mud, and his hands trembled uncontrollably. The morning light barely entered through the windows, as if the sun itself refused to touch this place. He tried to recall what happened last night, but the memories blurred. Whispers, the coffin, the woman's face, and those eyes in the dark. His phone was shattered. The walls of the house seemed closer now, like the building itself was breathing. Ethan decided to leave. He packed what little he had and ran to his car, but the engine wouldn't start. The keys turned endlessly, clicking, mocking him. He looked toward the house, and in one of the upstairs windows, someone was watching him. It was the old woman, but she was smiling this time. Ethan bolted back inside, shouting, "What do you want from me?" No answer, only the creak of the basement door slowly opening on its own. The smell of damp earth filled the air again. His flashlight barely worked, flickering as he stepped down the stairs. The coffin was gone. In its place, a deep hole yawned open in the ground, breathing cold air like a living thing. And then he saw her, the tall figure with the sack over her face, standing by the hole. She tilted her head slowly, as if studying him. When she spoke, her voice was a mix of many, the old woman's, a child's, his own. "You brought me back, Ethan. Now you will stay." The walls started bleeding mud. The markings began to glow red. Hands, dozens of them, clawed out of the dirt, grabbing at Ethan's legs, dragging him toward the hole. He screamed, fighting, but their pull was too strong. As his flashlight fell, he saw what was beneath the sack, his own face, twisted in pain. "You were always here," the creature whispered. "You just forgot." The ground swallowed him whole. The next morning, Hollow Creek was silent again. A real estate sign stood outside the house, reading "For sale." A young couple stopped their car nearby. "It looks perfect," the woman said, smiling. "And so cheap." From inside the dark window, Ethan watched, waiting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more terrifying horror tales. See you in the dark.